Rev up your engines. Today I'm going to show you how not to be ripped off at repair shops, and especially at chain repair shops. This vehicle is a perfectly good 2003 Toyota 4Runner. Yeah, it has a couple 100,000 miles on it, still running strong, but customer made the mistake of going to one of these NTBs, and what did they decide you need? As you can see right here, $1,890 worth of work on a vehicle that's running perfectly fine. And what really gets me out of that, makes me furious, is they try to sell her 4 tires. Now $556 is enough for 4 tires, but what really irked me was, on top of that, they wanted $186.99 and give a warranty. They make you pay extra for the warranty. When I was a young mechanic, we put tires on cars. We sold the customer the tire. We installed them free. We balanced them free. You didn't have to pay extra for a warranty on a brand new tire. Basically, they're just ripping you off, charging for all kinds of stuff that they really shouldn't be, but hey, it's a chain. That's how chains are. They're gonna gouge you as much as they can. If that isn't bad enough, check this out. As you can see here, it doesn't even need tires. They got tons of tread. The right rear, tons of tread. And the right front, tons of tread on that too. All right, so all 4 tires have tons of tread. I asked the customer that, are you having problems? Do you get flats? She said no. You know, I check them every once in a while and they're full. I don't know if they had any air, so they're not leaking. They're just trying to sell her a bill of goods. Bad enough they charge all that money to sell them to you and $187 to put them on and balance them, but she doesn't even need tires. I had a customer years ago. One of my customers was a bookkeeper for the guy. He was a millionaire. And I was working on his Volvo. She introduced me to him. The Volvo had 25,000 miles. And the guy had already paid for 3 sets of tires. They saw him coming. Oh, told them these Volvos, they're all-wheel drive and they're real powerful. It's time to put new tires on. They sold them 3 sets of tires, and it probably didn't need any of them changed whatsoever in that short period of time. But he paid for them, told him he needed it, let him put it on. Now, he was a millionaire, he had lots of money to spend. It wasn't like the guy was starving, but that's crooked. And I see that all the time with these chains. Then they're trying to sell them more stuff. Under the hood, they claimed it needed a power steering pump. Well, it's got over 200,000 miles. Sure, it's got a little bit of grease on it, but I asked her, is it leaking fluid and you have to add fluid? She said no. I said, does it make any noises when you turn? No. I said, does it steer good? Does it bind? It'd be hard to turn and then loosen up? She says, no. It's fine all the time. It's like it always was. And it's bad enough that they're trying to sell her power steering pump and hoses that she doesn't need. They were also including a $200 part for a metal hose on that system. The metal hoses never go bad. Yeah, it's got a little seepage on it. You can tighten the clamps up. But the hoses themselves, I've never seen one go bad. The metal hose, yeah, the rubber hoses go bad. They're rubber, they rot, they can leak a little bit. But the solid metal one, they don't go bad at all. They were just trying to sell her the farm. $1,890.05. But if you look right here, 6-month promotional finance is available. They'll give you this giant bill for stuff you don't even need done, but they'll finance it for you, so you don't have to pay it all at once. Now, I had this happen to my next door neighbor years ago. I'd work on her car, she didn't have much money, and she had a Honda. She needed a brake job. I'll take it back to Brake Check because they have a lifetime guarantee on their brake pads. I told her, this was years ago when things were cheaper, that her whole brake job was going to cost her about $65 for the entire job for me. But she thought, oh well, they gave me a lifetime guarantee on the brake pads, so I'll take it to them and they'll put them on for free. Hardy har har. She came back here, she showed me the bill. They hit her for like $695. And this was years ago and that was a lot of money. And they sold her all kinds of stuff, but they gave her the brake pads free. They told her that everything was leaking, they had to replace all these parts. So I said, again, have you been adding brake fluid? She said no, and it was always full. The light never came on for it being low. There was no kind of serious leak or anything. They just saw her coming, and the same thing. This particular one, they gave her a credit card for that company. It's a chain, so they charged it on her new credit card that they gave her because she had good credit. Where Scotty was going to charge her like $65 to fix it. So her free brake pads, really? They weren't so free, were they? And in this case, it's a 17-year-old 4Runner with over 200,000 miles on it. Things are going to be dirty. You'll get a little bit of seepage here and there. But when you look under this car, there's nothing dripping under there. Who cares about a little seepage? Oh, cars are going to get dirty under the hood and things are going to get greasy. when they're that old. But don't let people sucker you into buying all the stuff that you really don't need. In a solid vehicle like this, I've seen these things with 500,000 miles. This has got 200,000 miles. Most of the parts on this thing are still totally reliable. Yeah, they're a little bit worn. There's no arguing that. But they don't need to be replaced. Especially in this case, I gauge that there's at least 85% of the tread left. It's got tons of tread on it. Now, the rest of the vehicle, it's got 200,000 plus miles on it. But it still runs really good. You don't really care about age things on this. Take the headlamps. There they are. They're all faded because the plastic fades away over time. But if you can see at night good enough with the lights on, there's enough light going through them you can drive, who cares? You can always do polishing. I've got videos on how to polish them. You can even polish them with toothpaste if you want. Any kind of mild abrasive will polish them. You don't need to buy new ones. They'll still work. As long as they're not totally faded over and opaque where you can't see at night, they're perfectly fine. You don't need to buy new ones for a small fortune. And take the radiator on this old thing. It's the original one. It's plastic. And yeah, it's old. But I'm not going to try to sell somebody a radiator when it's not losing coolant and it's not dripping anywhere. You look at the valve cover gaskets, you can see there's a little bit of oil leaking on them there. That's darker there, but no big deal. Look, it's not even making it to the exhaust manifold and smoldering and smelling. Now, a dishonest mechanic can sell you all kinds of stuff on an old car. That's why I make these videos, to warn you, to stay away from those kind of people, to learn a little bit about your car. There's things you'll live with that don't make any big deal, but they're always going to try to sell you stuff on safety. They'll say, oh, that's not safe. You got to fix it right now. That's not safe. Last year I had a customer with an old one like this, and somebody sold him struts and shock absorbers for the thing, all the way around, for more than $1,000. He brought it to me because he said he was worried about the ride. So I got in it, and it didn't ride all that well. So I looked, and they were the cheapest Chinese-made discount struts you could possibly buy. He got charged for the top-of-the-line Toyota ones, but what he actually got were these cheap Chinese knockoffs, which actually rode worse than the old shocks that had 150,000 miles on them. They happen all the time with dishonest places, especially with the chain repair shops, because the managers there always get a percentage of what's sold out the door. So the more that's sold, the higher percentage they get for their cut of the job. But don't you get suckered into any of this stuff in the first place. And unfortunately, a lot of the chain repair shops, they don't even have that qualified mechanics that are that good. Just the other day, a customer called me up for their friend and said, my friend took his car to this shop to put an alternator on, and then the thing died a couple days later. And then they said, oh, well, it needed an alternator. We don't know what's wrong with it now. It's something electronic. If they didn't understand how that worked, they shouldn't have put an alternator and worked on the car in the first place. And when I checked that particular car out, they didn't disconnect the battery terminal when they were working on the alternator. And then they shorted the power wires off the alternator when they took them off, because this particular car was an Infinity and the alternator was real tight down low. It's very hard to get to the wire. So they must have shorted it out, and that fed through, and it actually fried the main computer. And that was beyond those guys at that chain repair shop. They forgot to take the battery terminal off, so they're working on a live system. And when they unbolted that alternator to get to those wires, there's no working room. You got to take the bolts off and then slide the alternator and then take the wires off. So it's very easy for the back wires, the power wires, to touch metal parts of the engine when you're wiggling it off, because you can't get the wires off until you move the alternator a little bit out of the way. That's why you always have to take the battery terminal off, one or both. Then there's no power in the system, and then if those wires touch metal, it doesn't hurt anything because there's no power flowing through it. The customer wasn't happy with having to buy a brand new computer. Chain repair shop, they said, oh, that had nothing to do with us. I mean, you'd have to sue them, and even in court, it'd be very hard to prove that they actually did that. There were no traces of, oh, look, this wire was broken off when I worked on it. They were all plugged in and everything. Like I told a customer of mine years ago, they had taken it to a chain muffler shop and they wanted to do some work on the engine. And I said, hey, put on your thinking cap that you're gonna let guys at a muffler shop take your engine apart and fix it. Big mistake. Now, years ago, I know a guy who ran a muffler shop, and he would fix engines and stuff and do a good job. Only thing was, he didn't do it himself. He just told the customers it's going to take 3-4 days. And when they left to his friend who worked on engines, and if the friend charged him $1,000 to fix an engine, He'd go around and tell the customer it was a $1,900 job. The guy did the work. He actually did good work, but he was just pretty much doubling what he made by just driving a car to the guy, and then when it was done, picking it up. So really don't let people sell you unneeded things. Be very leery. If you know a guy like me, or you have a friend who knows a guy like me, just contact him and say, I think this guy's trying to rip me off. Can I bring my car over? Guys like me will say, sure, bring it over, you know, on lunchtime or something. I'll check it out and tell you the truth about the vehicle. And the truth about this vehicle is it doesn't need any of that $1,800 something worth of work except for one thing. The left brake works. The right brake light works. The only thing that's not working is it needs bulbs and the little louver on the back, the airfoil that's on there. That's all it needs. And that certainly isn't $1,800 of work that needs done. So now you know how not to get ripped off at chain auto repair stores. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.